To continue with our discussion on motion, we'll be considering the projectile motion. And projectile motion is a motion occurring under the influence of gravity. And we say that they are usually assumed to be two-dimensional for simplicity purposes. What do I mean by two-dimensional? I simply imply that for a projectile motion, we assume that we ignore air resistance. So we usually ignore air resistance when dealing with projectile motion. We also assume uniform field influence. So these are the two major assumptions we make for this level or for this class. So we are going to ignore the air resistance. We are also going to assume uniform field influence. Let us consider some examples of projectile motion. Examples of projectile motion, the ones we can see common around us. The first one is a ball thrown at an angle to a wall. So if a boy decides to throw a ball at a particular angle to a wall, then it is an example of a projectile motion. Another one we can consider is a football kicked into the air towards a goal post. I'm sure you have seen this type of motion often, or I'm sure we've seen this type of motion. It's very common around us. Okay, so another one is a rocket fired at an angle to the horizontal plane or to the horizontal. Okay, this is another example of a projectile motion. Let us consider two more examples. A stone shot from a catapult is also an example of a projectile motion. The last example we have here is a bullet fired from a gun. Realize that all these are common examples of projectile motion and they can be seen in our environment. The most important thing is that there is a point where the object is being fired from and it maintains a particular path until it gets to the point where it lands or where it stops. Okay, so these are examples of projectile motion. Okay, we can have numerous examples also. We have various examples of projectile motion, but for the sake of this class, we just have to highlight the 5 common ones we see around us. Okay, so this is where we will end the class for today. In the next class, we will consider the terms associated with projectile motion. There are some terms we have to understand before we can even delve deeper into the concept of projectile motion. Those terms will be discussed in our next class. So see you in our next class.